you want some candy?
One year ago marked the beginning of an unsettling chapter in my life. My family and I relocated to a moderately sized home in a larger city, the name of which I'll omit for privacy reasons. The move was prompted by my father's recent employment at an insurance company in the city. Within a week, we found ourselves swiftly packing up our lives and leaving behind friends, family, and familiar surroundings for a fresh start on the other side of the country. While my mother wasn't entirely enthusiastic about the move, she stood by my father as a loyal and supportive wife, accepting the change despite her reservations. Our new residence initially seemed a bit run down, an old fixer-upper within the city that required some serious updates. Due to financial constraints, we decided to postpone any renovations and make do with the place. On the first day, my sister claimed the main floor bedroom in a rush, leaving my parents with the master bedroom upstairs and me with the basement. Though I was initially upset, hindsight tells me I should have been grateful. Unlike the rest of the house, the basement appeared to have been recently remodeled and was immaculate. However, strange markings adorned each wall, a detail I dismissed as an odd design choice by the previous owner at the time. Little did I know that these symbols would later prove to be the reason for my survival, unlike the rest of my family. Events unfolded rapidly after our first day in the house, starting with small, almost imperceptible incidents. My sister's scrapbooks were mysteriously torn apart, my mother's knitting needles were left in potentially harmful places, and my father's computer inexplicably fell and shattered when no one was upstairs. I wished it had stopped there, but things took a dark turn. About 6 months into our residence, an unforgettable day unfolded, a day that would haunt me for the rest of my life, however long that might be. My sister had a school friend over for a sleepover, and they were both thrilled. However, the joy turned into horror at 1 a.m. Everyone in the house, including myself, was sound asleep when a blood-curdling scream jolted me awake. Half curious and half frightened, I rushed upstairs to discover the cause. My sister was covered in blood, and her friend lay on the floor, or rather what was left of her. Most of her upper body was missing, twisted in unnatural positions that made me nauseous. Suddenly, the entire house shook violently, as if it had come alive and was furious with us. Lights dimmed, and a large figure emerged seemingly out of thin air. The figure attacked my sister with a savage swing, effortlessly beheading her. My parents tried to escape, but the entity relentlessly pursued them, determined to claim their bodies. In a moment of sheer panic, I fled to the safety of my basement room. The figure noticed me, but halted when I stepped onto the basement stairs. It emitted a guttural scream, causing my ears to bleed. The unbearable sound compelled me to slam the door shut and throw myself down the stairs to escape it. The entity remained upstairs. For days, I hid in my basement, too afraid to leave and witness the carnage upstairs. The markings on the walls seemed to act as a protective force, keeping the entity at bay. It dawned on me that these symbols were the key to my survival. While I managed to sustain myself with provisions from the basement, the limited supplies were running out. As day 6 approached, I cautiously considered leaving my sanctuary. The realization struck me that whatever was haunting my family would have already reached me if it could. The markings on the basement walls seemed to repel the entity, acting as a shield against its malevolent force. Despite the uncertainty of survival, the daunting prospect of what awaited me upstairs made me question whether I still desired to live.
Dear reader, as it often happens, stories like these typically commence with something inconspicuous, something seemingly insignificant, and so unfolded my tale, with the vanishing act of the most ordinary belongings. Waking up in the dimness of my bedroom, I usually expected comfort and routine. However, today felt different. The first step toward the kitchen to brew some coffee marked the onset of a peculiar and inexplicable saga. The slippers that habitually rested by my bedside were nowhere to be found. Well, it's just absent-mindedness. I must have forgotten where I put them, I mused, attempting to convince myself. Yet, as I groped around the floor, it became evident that they hadn't simply wandered off in the nocturnal darkness. Suspicion crept in. Venturing into the kitchen, I noticed the absence of a vase of fresh flowers from the living room table. I glanced into the dark corner of the room, half expecting someone to be lurking there. However, the silence remained unbroken. I mixed my disgruntled thoughts with a weary sigh, unaware that this was merely the inception. The entire day at the office felt like navigating through a mysterious fog. It wasn't a burglary, nothing valuable had gone missing. Theoretically, I could have somehow misplaced both slippers at once, but the flowers... Did I unknowingly wake up at night and stow them away? I couldn't comprehend it. Work seemed trivial compared to the perplexing disappearance of household items. I paced between desks, attempting to grasp what was unfolding. My subconscious hinted at the oddity, something perplexing, but I endeavored to dismiss these premonitions. Returning home, I hoped my house would be a sanctuary, but an intangible tension lingered in the air and goosebumps prickled my skin. I recalled the morning when the slippers vanished and sought an explanation. My rationality clashed with the unknown, and I sensed that this nightmare had only just commenced. My world became increasingly fragile each morning as another piece of reality vanished with some item from my home. Doubts infiltrated my mind, and I increasingly suspected that answers lurked in the nocturnal darkness when it seemed I lost control over myself. The inevitable solution presented itself, a surveillance system. Every camera within my apartment became a spectator in this strange theater where I played both the actor and the audience. Night after night, I observed myself, as if through a stranger's eyes, striving to decipher the mystery of my own erratic sleepwalking. Upon waking up in the morning, I reviewed the recordings. There I was, undeniably me, yet I couldn't discern anything peculiar in my sleep except for one detail. On all the cameras, a segment from 1:32 to 1:49 at night was missing. A fragment where even the cameras couldn't peer, as if something within me refused to unveil its secrets. In the darkness of my soul, something hid that I couldn't perceive, not even in the most nightmarish dream. The following morning arrived. At that moment, when the first rays of light barely touched the room, I awoke, sensing the dampness of dusk. My heart throbbed, not fully grasping the surrounding darkness. Yet, in the shadowy corner of my bedroom, I discerned a figure, tall, slender, with long, bony arms. The ominous figure stood still, eyes locked on me, scrutinizing every thought as if conducting a meticulous analysis. Fear emanated from its presence, creeping into my soul like icy fingers seizing me. Suddenly breaking free from the bed, I bolted out of the room, feeling the dark gaze trailing me. Nausea from fear engulfed me, but I didn't cease until I found myself outside, clad only in underwear, standing on the threshold of my apartment. Ultimately, I fabricated a story, informing my family that I had to leave for business and requesting them to relocate my belongings to another apartment. They inquired about the reason, but I never divulged the truth. Since then, I often awaken in the night and peer into the dark corner of the room,